People don't betray you in the way you imagine betrayal. There is no dramatic turning point where everything suddenly collapses. No clear moment where someone switches from loyal to disloyal, from caring to indifferent. What actually happens is far more subtle and, because of that, far more difficult to accept. People reveal who they have always been, slowly, consistently, through patterns that were always present but unnoticed, through behaviors you chose to ignore because they did not align with the image you had created in your mind. You did not see them for who they were. You saw them for who you believed they could be, who you wanted them to be, who you needed them to be for your own emotional stability. And when reality finally removes that illusion, it does not feel like clarity. It feels like something has been taken from you, when in truth, nothing was taken. You were simply forced to see what was always there. From early on, you were conditioned to believe in a version of human behavior that feels comforting, but does not survive real-world experience. You were taught that if you are kind, people will return that kindness. That if you are loyal, others will respect that loyalty. That if you invest in people, they will invest in you. But people do not operate based on fairness or equal exchange. They operate based on perception, emotion, personal benefit, and shifting priorities. And those priorities are not fixed. They change depending on circumstances, depending on emotions, depending on what someone values in that specific moment. The mistake you make is assuming that people are stable, that what they feel today is what they will feel tomorrow, that what they promise today will remain true in the future. But human nature does not work like that. It is fluid, inconsistent, and often contradictory. And when you expect consistency from something that is not consistent, you create the very disappointment that you later blame on others. Most people are not thinking about you in the way you think they are. They are not analyzing your actions, not replaying your words, not questioning your intentions. They are focused on themselves, on their own internal struggles, their own fears, their own ambitions, their own insecurities. You might spend hours thinking about a single interaction, trying to understand what it meant, trying to decode every detail, while the other person has already moved on, unaware of the impact they had on you. And that is where much of your pain originates. Not from the action itself, but from the meaning you attach to it, from the story you create around it, from the emotional weight you carry without realizing that it exists only in your perception. You expect consistency, but people are inconsistent. You expect loyalty, but loyalty requires a level of discipline and awareness that most people do not have. You expect honesty, but honesty requires discomfort, and most people avoid discomfort whenever possible. And when those expectations are not met, you feel hurt, confused, sometimes even betrayed. But the deeper truth is that you were not betrayed. You were misaligned. You believed in a version of reality that did not exist. You held people to standards they never agreed to meet. And when reality revealed itself, it felt like something was broken, when in fact, nothing was broken. You were simply seeing clearly for the first time. The Stoics understood this with a level of clarity that most people still struggle to reach. Marcus Aurelius did not waste time wishing people were different. He observed them as they were. He understood that people act according to their own nature, their own understanding, their own limitations. They do not act based on your expectations. And once you accept that, once you stop expecting people to behave according to your internal rules, you stop being surprised by behavior that is actually very predictable. You begin to see patterns, and those patterns remove confusion. What hurts you is not the event itself. It is the interpretation you attach to the event. Someone ignores you, and you interpret it as rejection. Someone distances themselves, and you interpret it as abandonment. Someone disrespects you, and you interpret it as a reflection of your worth. But these interpretations are not facts. They are assumptions, shaped by your own fears, your own past experiences, your own insecurities. When you begin to question those interpretations, when you begin to separate what happened from what you think it means, you create space. And in that space, you gain control. There is a truth that many people resist because it challenges their desire for emotional certainty. People care when it aligns with their interests. They invest when they see value. They stay when it is convenient. And they leave when it is not. This is not a negative statement. It is an accurate one. Human behavior is influenced by perceived value, whether that value is emotional, social, or practical. And when that value changes, behavior often changes with it. Understanding this does not make you cynical. It makes you aware. If you look back at your life honestly, you will see this pattern repeated again and again. People who were present during certain phases but disappeared during others. People who showed interest when you were at your best but were absent when you were at your lowest. People who spoke about loyalty but failed to demonstrate it when it mattered. These are not isolated incidents. They are reflections of a broader pattern of human behavior. And once you recognize that pattern, you begin to understand that your expectations were not based on reality. They were based on belief. Epictetus emphasized focusing only on what is within your control. You cannot control how people feel about you. You cannot control whether they stay or leave. You cannot control whether they are honest or deceptive, but you can control how you respond. You can control how much access you give them. You can control how much energy you invest. And you can control whether their actions disturb your internal state. Strong individuals do not move through life with blind trust. They move with awareness. They observe patterns over time. They listen to actions, not just words. Because words can be shaped to create impressions, but actions require effort, and effort reveals priorities. When someone consistently behaves in a certain way, that behavior is not accidental. It is a reflection of who they are. And once you learn to prioritize actions over words, you begin to see people more clearly. Detachment is often misunderstood as emotional coldness. But in reality, it is emotional independence. It is the ability to care without becoming dependent. It is the ability to engage without losing yourself. When you are detached, you are not controlled by outcomes. You are not shaken by changes in behavior. You are not constantly seeking validation. You remain steady because your stability comes from within. When you remove expectations, you remove a major source of suffering. Expectations create a script in your mind of how things should happen. And when reality does not follow that script, you experience frustration, disappointment, sometimes even anger. But when you let go of that script, when you allow things to unfold as they are, you experience a different kind of peace. A peace that comes from acceptance rather than control. Another realization that changes everything is understanding that people do not suddenly change as much as you think they do. What appears as change is often increased visibility. You begin to see aspects of them that were always present, but hidden behind your initial perception. In the beginning, you focus on what attracts you. You ignore inconsistencies. You justify behavior. But over time, those inconsistencies become patterns, and those patterns become impossible to ignore. And what feels like change is often clarity. Awareness changes how you experience everything. When you become aware of how people operate, you stop taking things personally. You stop overanalyzing every interaction. You stop expecting perfection from imperfect individuals. And instead, you approach interactions with realism. Not pessimism, but realism. You understand that people are influenced by their own experiences, their own fears, their own desires. And because of that understanding, you adjust your expectations. You become more selective with your time and energy. You no longer give everyone the same level of access to your life. You recognize that trust should be built gradually. You understand that boundaries are necessary. And you begin to prioritize your own well-being over maintaining connections that do not add value to your life. At the same time, this awareness does not isolate you. It strengthens you. You still connect with people, but from a place of strength rather than need. You do not rely on others to complete you. You do not seek validation to feel worthy. And because of that, your interactions become more genuine, more balanced, more controlled. As you continue to develop this mindset, you will notice that you are less affected by situations that once caused emotional instability. You will not feel the need to react to every small change. You will not feel compelled to explain yourself. You will not chase people who distance themselves. Instead, you will focus on your own path, your own growth, your own discipline, because your life is shaped by your actions, not by other people's behavior. The more energy you spend trying to understand or control others, the less energy you have for your own development. And when you redirect that energy inward, you begin to build something that cannot be taken away from you. There is a freedom that comes with this understanding. A freedom from emotional dependence. a freedom from needing others to behave in a certain way, a freedom from being affected by every small disappointment. And once you experience that freedom, you realize that it is far more valuable than any temporary comfort. So when someone shows you who they are, pay attention, not with anger, not with resentment, but with clarity. Let their actions inform your decisions. Let their patterns guide your boundaries. And most importantly, let their behavior remind you that your peace should never depend on something you cannot control. Because not everyone is meant to stay. Not everyone is meant to understand you. Not everyone is meant to meet your expectations. And that is not something to resist. That is something to accept. And once you accept it, once you stop fighting reality, you begin to move through life with a different kind of strength. A quiet, grounded, unshakable strength. A strength that does not depend on others. And that is where your true power begins. If this hit you hard, subscribe. Because once you understand this, people lose power over you.